Hello, welcome along, Nigel with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench. If you are new to the channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe down there, give us a thumbs up and hit the notifications bell. It all helps support the channel. So this is the brand new Riffield model, as yet unavailable, M1128 MGS Stryker after 2010. I've reviewed this kit. If you haven't seen it already, go and have a look. It is a beautiful kit, as are all Riffield models. Part number is 5148. It's going to retail at around $53.99 and it will be available from Tiger Hobbies sometime between like the beginning of December and Christmas. So it'll be this side of Christmas, but it's going to be in December when the when that container actually gets to the UK. So, as I say, I've done a review, so we don't need to look around the box or anything. What we can do is have a look at what we've got in here, and we have a box which is packed full of plastic. We have a lovely 3D printed barrel there. We have vinyl tyres which have lovely lettering and that on them. It's a shame they're vinyl, but if you really want to, you can get resin wheels. We've got hull pieces here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to build this kit, but just build it. I'm not going to paint anything. I'm not going to super detail anything. I am just literally going to put it together. It's a review sample, so we're going to build it for what it is, a review sample. So I've got my knife with a new blade in it. I've got some God hand cutters should I need them, and I've got my old Tamiya fine point cutters. I've got some tweezers. I've got some lovely God hand tweezers here, which are very, very nice. I might use those as well. So these are my old ones that I use all the time. And that's basically it. We've got some. I'm going to get a new. This is a 400 grit sanding stick from Infinity. I'm going to get a new one of those out. And that's basically all we're going to use. Oh, and we've got some cement. We've got our Tamiya extra thin and extra thin, well, quick extra thin. Extra thin, quick setting, is that what, I can't remember. Yeah, quick setting, that's what it's called. I must be using my mind. Right, so without further ado, we will crack into the instructions. Okay, and I'm going to fold this over so that it doesn't wipe the camera out too much. I know some of you like to see the instructions so you can see what I'm doing next to what it is. So we start off here with this hull piece. Now we shouldn't have any cleanup required on here. If we do have ejector pin marks, I'm probably going to leave them. We shall see. I may just give it a coat of green paint at the end. We may have the wheels removable. I think they're on polycaps, so that's good. And being vinyl tyres, we just pop the tyres off, paint the wheels, and then pop the tyres back on. But if we decide to paint it, that is, we can do. Or I might send it to someone else to paint, Luke. So there we go. Right. So let's crack on. So we've got to find the A sprue and the D sprue. So this is probably the D sprue, yeah, because it's a multiple. So we've got 4 diff covers there. And then the A sprue is going to have some axles on it. So there's the A sprue there. So what we'll do is we'll get these sprues bagged. I probably won't bother rebagging them as we go. What I'm going to do is build this in a series of 1 hour, 45 minute, 1 hour videos, and go from there. I will be stopping the camera and editing, so you don't have to sit there and watch me. For example, you won't have to sit there and watch me assemble 8 wheels, anything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with these parts here. So we've got A38, which is the A road which runs near me in Gloucester. So that's going to come off of there. Just be careful there. That end there is actually part of the model. It's not a sprue gate. I'm going to leave these pins in place. I've got a feeling that if you have steering wheels, you have to cut these little pins off the end of the axles anyway. We'll have a look at that in a second. So that's that, and then we've got the D sprue here, which is a double whammy. So we'll take those out. Remember, if you've got 2 sprues in a bag, guys, always take them out together. Don't slide one over the other because things get broken that way. So we've got these 2 D15s here, which are there. So there's 1 and there's 2. Pop that out of there. Okay, so that's going to be our diffs we're going to put together. So we'll remove the sprue gates, just like so. As I say, it's not going to be a super detailed build. It's not going to be really fussy or anything. It's just going to be putting it together to see what it goes together like. Because some of you have commented that apparently the AFV Club is a bit tricky. I personally love AFV Club. but I'm hearing that this Stryker from AFE Club is a bit difficult to put together, but who knows? It all depends who's writing the comment, really, doesn't it? So I finished the Poker Pagani, the Pagani Utopia, which I'm pleased. It feels like a weight off my shoulders, to be honest, because I didn't enjoy that build. Probably after the second or third video, I probably didn't enjoy it at all. So we're going to use a little flory skinny stick there, and then these diff covers are going to simply glue on, so it goes that way up, and these are going to go onto here like this. Excuse the state of my fingers, guys, if you haven't already seen it. We're going to use the quick setting here. If you haven't already seen it, I've got a new channel called Nigel's Fiat 131. Go take a look. What I've done, I've bought a Fiat 131 rust free, imported it from Italy, and I am currently, well, I've now rebuilt it and rebuilt the engine, gearbox, brakes, suspension, everything, and I've got it all on the road now, and I'm going to drive it around for a little while, and then it's going to go onto a rotisserie and be completely stripped and then be converted to a two-door, and I'm going to make a Barth Group 4 replica out of it, along with Rally Sport Developments. Go have a look at Rally Sport Developments on the on Facebook. Fantastic Facebook page they've got. Right, so then this is going to go down into those holes in there. So we've got these pins on the bottom. So that's going to go down like that, and that's going to sit in there like that. Okay, so make sure when you take this part off, A38, that is not a sprue gate. That is part of the model. So what we can do is put that in that way up, and then we can get some of our extra thin quick setting, put a drop on there, and we'll put a drop on there, and then we'll just give these a little wiggle, and that glue will then wick into the gap behind. So that's that. So I'm going to get the rest of the parts off the sprue to finish this step one, and then I'll be back. Okay, so we've got the parts off the sprue. I keep saying okay. I'm going to try and stop saying okay at the opening of every segment. So I've got all the parts off the sprue, all cleaned up. We've got some left and right hand bits here which are handed. The rest of it is all sorts of, these are handed, and the rest of it is all D numbers except for this piece here, obviously. So I think what we'll do is we'll just work from the back forward. So we've got these tiny little pieces here. I've got my God hand tweezers out because they're so nice. You can see they're lovely flat on the end of them rather than just a pinpoint. So this is going to go into these holes on here. So I'm not sure if it's tight enough to stay. No, it's not. So what we'll have to do is we will grab this in our tweezers. Put a drop of the extra thin quick setting on there. The only reason I'm using a quick setting is for speed. Okay, so that's gone into there like so. And then I'll do the same on, I'll go down one side and I'll do the other side off camera because you don't want to see me do all of this, do you? Well, you might, but you know, it's pretty boring just to watch the same thing over and over again, isn't it? So these D87, D86, they're handed. It looks like the wedge has to point rearwards. I'm not sure about the angle they've got to be on. I got them in the wrong holes, that's why. Could have made a mistake there. Put a drop of cement on here, which would be enough just to tack it in place. So it's going to sit, it's obviously a bump stop, it's going to sit on top of that box there. So that's how it's going, like that. And then we'll just put a drop of the extra thin quick setting in there just to lock it in. And then we'll do the same with this one here. So that one's going to go into there like that. There we go. So that's cool. And then we have this little piece at the front, D38. This has tiny little dimples on it. It's also got a mould seam on it. Here's my new Infinity 400 grit sanding stick. All of this stuff I'm using you can get from Brooks Models, brooksmodels.co.uk. And if you look in the description below the video, there is a code structure where you can use the code NMB10 to get 10% off on purchases over £15, and you can get 20% off on purchases over £50. I'm going to have to put a drop of cement in those holes, just like so. That was a bit too much there. And then we can place this, oops, throwing it around the place, you can place that on there. Oh dear, it's fallen over. So yeah, you can get your discounts from Brooks Models on these fantastic products, the God Hand tweezers, the God Hand nippers, and the Infinity sanding sticks, which in my opinion are the best on the planet. Right, and then this piece here is going to go in like so. So that's obviously some additional armour that's different on different models. So I'm just going to put a couple of drops of cement on here, just like that, and then push that on, just like so. And then what we'll do is come around the inside and we'll put a couple of drops like that, and that will hold that in place. There we go. You can see I've still got a little bit of a sprue gate left on there, which I haven't sanded off. So we'll get that sanded off. Okay, so that's, I've gone down one side. Now we've got to do the front. So we've got this front panel here, which is going to go in that way up. It's got little location tabs on the back. And make sure none of these ejector pin marks are raised or have a ring around them. Sometimes they have like a little raised ridge around them. Just make sure so that your part fits down nice and snug. So that's going to go on. That's a very nice fit. It's really positive. You can see it's sort of locked in. So what I'm going to get the ordinary extra thin now. I'm going to put a drop there and a drop there. That'll be enough to hold that plate in place. Remember, this is all bolted on or riveted on or wherever it's attached, but it's all separate. So don't worry about having little gaps around edges and stuff, because it's all, that's how it is. You can see it here where they've moulded it on. It's all got a gap around it. And then this piece here, this is D88, is going to hook over there and go into those three little slots, and that is absolutely gorgeous little fit in there. So we'll put a drop of extra thin over each of those tabs. Whistle that again, and then here we've got this little piece which has got these two little locations on the back, and that's going to go into there, and that fits beautifully as well. Just give it a little nudge with the tweezers, and then I'm just going to put a drop in there and a drop in there, and that'll be enough to hold that. Okay, and then we'll do the same on the other side. What I'm going to do this time, I'm going to put some cement into those slots and into there, and then we can hook that over. That drops straight in, and then we can put some cement in here. I'm not test fitting because I trust this kit to be amazing. I'll obviously test fit most parts, but when it comes to parts like this, move over. There we go. So that's gone on there beautifully. So that's that all fitted out, and then we've got these shackles that go on the front. I'm not going to glue them, I'm just going to leave them loose, I think. Hopefully they'll stay there. There we go. And then we got another one there. There we are. So that's those on. Just leave them loose, and then they'll hang naturally under their own weight. Okay, and then I'm going to put these greeblies on here, which you've just seen me do on this side, and then we'll move on to A1 and A2. Alright, so I've got parts off here for A1, and then we've got to make 4 of these, but I've only got the parts off to make 1, because obviously you don't need to see me do 4. So this piece here is our front differentials, so that's going to go that way up, and then these diff covers are going to go, diff sumps should I say. We'll use some quick setting, drop in there, just to stick them on. If you can hear rumbling, it's my stomach, I'm sorry. I haven't had any lunch yet. So that's going, is the right way, isn't it? Yeah. Will they go on backwards? Yes, they will, because I had it backwards the first time. So be careful of the direction of them, not that it really matters. You're never going to see them unless you turn your model upside down and have a look at it. So there we go, so that's those glued together. So that's that done. Okay, no doubt that's going to go in into the chassis the same. So if we go over the page, we can see here that's going to go in exactly the same as the other one did. So that's just going to plonk into there. Right, so this step A1, this is a working shock absorber type thing. So basically we've got a shock absorber and a pivot. So I'm assuming this is our pivot pin here. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to put those together yet. What I'm going to do first of all is build the shock absorber unit. I'll do all 4 of those. I obviously won't do them on camera. But what we've got to do here is put this spring inside this body. Okay, and then we have to put there like that, and then what we're going to do is pop this into that hole, and as you can see now we've got a working shock absorber. Now obviously this plastic part must not be glued to that, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a clothes peg and peg it together just like so, and then I can put some quick setting on here down at this end to get that end glued. Okay, and let that just tack off, and then make sure this is all aligned, and then put a tiny drop. Notice I'm using quick setting. The reason I do that is if it does get onto the part, it does make it a lot easier to break away. I've talked about this many times in my builds. If you use the ordinary extra thin, it tends to stay gooey for longer. So if you do get some glue on the part, it tends to be like a sticky, gooey mess. Whereas with the quick setting, if you just keep moving it, you'll suddenly feel it'll just go because it dries so fast. And then what we can do is with a sparing amount, we can put some on the top here and let that wick into the joint. We'll just keep twisting that piston just to make sure it doesn't get glued up. There we are, that's our shock absorber done. Alright, so that's nice, isn't it? Right, now that is going to be sandwiched. Actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to build all 4 of these and then I can sand away the seam. If you notice as well, another little thing I do, I never bother with sprue gates when they're on the edge of a part like this, because you're going to come and sand the seam anyway, so you may as well do the sprue gates when you do them then. The other thing I like to do with cylindrical parts is just pinch the seam line is going vertically. I like to pinch them like that with the tweezers just to make sure they're lined up so you've got a perfect circle. Alright, so I'm going to make the other 3 of those and then I'll come back and we'll start to assemble them. Okay, so did it again. I said okay. I've built up one unit, so you can see we have the pivot here, we have the shock absorber there, we've got this pin here glued in as well. I've gone around and sanded out all these seams on the shock absorbers. You know, they're not perfect, but as I say, this is just a build. It's not supposed to be a perfect model. Something I have discovered on these parts here, which are D74 and D75, there is a Z pin. It's like one of these, you can see it on the inside of the hull here. It's an ejector pin and it's got this raised piece on it that you just break off. There it is there. But what's happening is this part here that it goes onto, sorry, this fits that one. This part here that it goes onto, it goes on like that, and you can see it's rocking. Okay, so that Z pin here on the back is sitting on top of this raised area here, so we need to completely remove it. Just get in there. I've got a radius blade here, a number 10 I think it is, isn't it? Yeah, number 10. That's a 10A. So So we just get in there and scrape that away so there's no raised area there at all. Okay, and then when we put it together now, we will see that it no longer rocks, it fits lovely. So there we are. Actually, it does have something still there. It didn't quite go down properly, so make sure you've got all of the plastic debris out. It's a bit of a pain. I wish they'd considered it in design and put a hole in the other side to take care of it. But, there we go, you can see it's going together lovely now. Right, so now we need to take a shock absorber, place that over that pin, and then we're going to place this over the top, just like so. Drop of extra thin quick setting in there, just give it a pinch, and then we'll get a drop in there and some in here as well, and we'll also get some around there. So get it all glued together nice and solid. You can see that our shock absorber still moves. And then we've got these parts here, D63, which is going to go into the back here. So we've got like a square on the end of there and a square for it to go into. Drop of the quick setting in there, hold that vertical, and then just get it perpendicular. There we go. And just leave that to dry. When we come to fit it, we'll be able to play around with them a little bit. I'm not sure exactly. I think they go in through there. I think they're going to go into these slots in here and become like torsion bars. Not sure how strong it's all going to be. We may have to just glue it all up solid. We shall see. But anyway, I'm going to go on and get the other three done. The other two done. I've done two now. Get them done, and then I'll come back when they're dry, because we're going to have to let these dry out because those pins are going to want to just keep moving around. So I'll get the others done and then I'll come back. Well, this is fiddly, but it's very, very nice. You can see we've got the moving suspension there, we've got the torsion bars on the inside, we've got the springs there and the shock absorber, so we're going to have posable suspension. So if you want to do a diorama and sit it on and have the wheels all that, just put a little bit of weight inside the model and you're good to go. Right, so that's all done. You do have the option here, you can see in the instructions it says D16 or D17 for the left and right. You can actually, you have these plastic parts here which are solid, so you could just use them instead. Now they are more representative of how the real thing should be, because you can see there the shock absorbers have got these outer covers on them, so it is more accurate to have those rather than the working ones, but we'll go for the working ones because it's more fun. So what we're going to do, we're going to fit these. So what I've got to do is get this little pivot point at the bottom here, and I'm going to put that through the shock absorber body, and hopefully that will stay in place. Make sure everything's nice and free to move. And then basically what's going to happen is, that's going to go that way, that's right. Hang on, what am I doing? So I've got the shock absorber. What am I doing here? This seems to be... I got it the wrong way around. Yes, I have. It's like that, isn't it? So that's the torsion bar is going to go into that hole. Okay. And the end of this end of the hub here is going to go over the shaft. And then that pin's fallen out, which makes it quite awkward because it's difficult to fit. So what we're going to do is grab this by its top, and we're just going to place that. In fact, I'm going to do the rear one first because this one gets in the way. That's going to go in there, and then we're going to grab this by its top and put that pin into that shock absorber and then push it in like that. Okay, and then we'll go into there like that, and then we'll slide that over. Now, as you can see, we've got working suspension. It doesn't really matter if you get some glue on this pin, because there's enough play in the shock absorber in the shaft to allow it to, you know, move. It doesn't matter if that is they're free on mine, but it doesn't matter if they're not. Okay, so that's gone in there, and then we'll do the same on this one here. So we're going to plop You see what I mean? I managed to get glue on that one, but because I used quick setting, you see it just broke away without all this gunginess. You know, if you use ordinary extra thin, it just stays sticky for ages. So we're going to turn that shock absorber body around, and then we can grab this by its top, slip that pin in like so and into there. That went surprisingly well considering the camera's on. Drop a cement into there, give it a push. That's held in place now. And then on the inside, I'm going to get a sparing amount of cement, just a tiny bit. I don't want it to wick all along the bottom of the rod there. I'm just going to put a sparing amount in there and just drop that on like that. And then a sparing amount in there, just like so. Okay, so there we go. So that's our rear suspension dealt with. Now this rear cover piece here, this is going to fit on just like that. It's a beautiful fit. All I'm going to do is put a drop of quick setting in there, a drop in there, and that will wick around. And then we can put a drop in here, like so. There we are, that's that glued on. Nice and solid. We could put a drop inside there as well, actually, up under there. Up under there, there we go. So that's the rear part of the bodywork gone on there. And then finally, for step 2, we have to fit this this assembly, and it's going to go that way round. Okay, so that's going to go in there. So once again, we'll turn that over, and then we'll put a drop of cement on those pins, and that will wick down around those pins just like so. There we are. And that's those in. We could also, if you want to, put a little drop on there where those subframe, where the diff mounts are. Do the same on this side. There we go. So that, my friends, is step 2. We've got working suspension on both sides. Just make sure they stay pushed in and that those torsion bars are glued in. Make sure, because otherwise your wheels are going to fall off. Right, so that's step 2 done. You've still got lots of springs left. Remember, the big spring is for the barrel. I don't know what those little pins are for, I can't remember now. But anyway, we've got to now look at step 3, but for doing that I'm going to have to find something that I can heat up and melt the pins with. Be back in a bit. Moving along now, so we're on to step 3. I've got all the parts off. Now these parts here, D33, they're identical. They're obviously one on each sprue. And then we've got these 2 D19s, and then we've got this A67 and A68. I've already fitted them because I didn't want to get them mixed up. They go a certain way. So these are the 2 D19s, A67, A68, and there's those 2 D33s there. So they're all fitted. I've built up one of these steering arms here, so this is the rearmost one. I've got this one to do, and as you can see I've got my glue looper here, and I've got the parts off the sprue all cleaned up, ready to go. There is only one difference with these. This uses D97 and this uses D95, so bear that in mind when you're working with it. So we've got this D13, which is the tie rod, and then this here, we've got this one here, this is D95. So that's going to go through there, through the rearmost hole. So I'm going to hold that in my fingers there. Hang on. There we go. Then get the glue looper, get it in the heat. And the reason I'm using this is because it's quite thin. It cools quite quickly, because sometimes you can go over the top with these and sort of mash it too much. Just a little bit more. You know, if you come with a red hot screwdriver, it holds so much heat, you just mash it and it just ruins everything. So do that, and then that just, it's a gentle little bit on there. And then coming from there, we've got D95, and then we've got D58. We can tell which is which because when you have it like that, the little screw clamps face backwards or face towards you as it's drawn there. It all gets flipped over when it's on the model. So I'm going to hold that in there, and then once again get some heat onto the glue looper. and then just touch that pin. As you can see, we've got the black soot because of the candle, but don't worry about that. And then I can just come along and sand off the top of the melt a bit just to tidy it up a bit. There we go, there's our workable steer. Now if you don't want to do this, you have the option to use, where is it? It's on the D-sprue. Here, you have D93 and D94, okay? So you have the option to use them if you're not worried about having working steering. I'm going to have everything working because it just makes it more fun to build, doesn't it? So we're going to go back here, we're going this way up, and then we've got D61 is going to go onto here. Just like so. Push that on. Lovely fitting pins. They fit really snugly, so you don't get any rock. Come on. He says they fit lovely, and then that one doesn't fit. There we go. You see, they fit very, very nicely. So I'll get that heated up there. There we go. Okay, and then finally this part here, this is D65. That's going to go up into there, into that hole. It's going to fit perfectly because it's a snug fit. Come on, go in the hole. I reckon these holes might be a little bit flashed over on that part, on that D61, because all the others went in easier than that, but they were all a nice fit. So we'll get some heat into there, and then squash that one down. There we go. And we can hold the end of there, and then just lightly sand over the top just to remove any unevenness that's on there. So there we go. That's those done. Now that's the forward one, that's the rearmost one. So basically we're now going to take our chassis, and these are going to be a snug fit because we're going to pass those bits. I should have left those on the sprue and then glued them on after. So this is basically going to flip over like that. Like that, so it's going that way round. Okay. And then these pins on here are going to go down through those holes in the floor. So I'm going to use my old tweezers here. I've put the new tweezers away and not got them back out again. So that's got to go through there, and then that arm needs to be held square. This is going to be difficult. It'll be much easier if you put those D19 parts in after. But that arm's going to have to be held square or it won't go underneath that D19. There we go, it's gone in. And then the same on this side. There we go, you can hear that sort of click in, and then you can see we've got our working steering here now. So we just check this is correct. What have I done wrong? Got these parts here upside down. I've got these the wrong way round. They're not upside down, they're the wrong way round. That doesn't matter. All it means, when you're looking at it here, these clamps should be facing forward. So you can see here we've got the clamps facing forward. I've put them on the wrong way round. Stupid me. Yeah, I've put those on the wrong way round. Now, that's the only difference is those clamps are facing backwards and not forwards. They'd probably be like that in a real vehicle anyway if they had maintenance done on it. But they can't be upside down because of the way the pins go. I wouldn't want them to be upside down because these ends are different. But they should be the same way as these. Have I done these upside down as well? No, I've done this correct. So this one is going to go, put that arm under there. Okay, and so this one is going to go into there. There we go. And then this one's going to go into here, like so. There we are, that's gone in there easily. You can see on this one, those little clamps on those tie rods are facing forward, or trap rod ends. They're facing forward on that, they're facing back. It doesn't matter, I've got it wrong, I've done it wrong way around here. Right, so now what we need to do is turn it over. I'll do this one first because this is the one that's going to fall out. So now what we've got to do is turn it over, get our little glue looper, get some heat into it, and just press it on that pin to mushroom the end over. So now that'll stay in there. I'm going to heat that bit up a bit more because I want that pin to stay a bit tighter than that. It's all a bit floppy. So get some more heat into this. There we are. That's better. Okay, then we'll hold that one down. Actually, I'm going to clean this glue looper off because it's covered in black soot and plastic residue. Right, so get that held down there. Come along with this, get it hot. And push that down in there. Just to mushroom the end of that pin over. There we go, you can see we've got a nice snug fit now, nothing's all rocking about, and that's why I like to make the mushroom head go right down to the base material. Otherwise, if you just sort of touch the top, you end up with a pivot that sort of rocks around. There's hardly anything to melt over on that one, there's nothing sticking out. Okay, so that's good, we'll hold that one in. Like I say, it's really worth using something thin like this, guys, rather than a big heavy screwdriver, because your big heavy screwdriver will just go through the whole lot, just make a right mess. There we go. So you can see we've got a nice snug fit on that, nothing's all rocking about. Okay, so that is that's that step complete. Okay, as I say, I'm not going to worry about those steering arms, but you can see here from this drawing I've got them the wrong way around. They should be facing forward. Doesn't matter. Right, so coming over the page now, we're going to be adding some front suspension and stuff. So once again, I'll get these parts off and we'll go from there. Okay, so moving along, we've completed step 3. Let's look at step 4. I've got all the pieces off here, ready for doing step 4. All sanded down and everything, and we can see here that if you want to use wheels can turn, so that's steering, basically what we've got to do is do some drilling and some heating again. So we've got these wishbones which are D23 and D24, and as you can see they have a beautiful castellated nut molded onto them. So if you're doing the version where you don't steer it, so as you can see you would use these units here. Okay, you just have a little pin that will fit on there and that will glue into place. Whereas with this one, we've got a longer pin, and what we've got to do is drill through. Now, this is all becoming a bit like a toy, I know that, but what I want to do is take advantage of the features they're offering. So, it would appear my drill is maybe a little blunt. There we go, so that's gone through there. And then what we'll do is we'll just sand the top of that over and then drill back through that way, and then we've just a case of putting this through here. Make sure we got the right one. Now be careful because the steering arm needs to be forward, and it looks like That's the right one there. That's going through there, and then we'll heat up that pin there. I'm assuming what we're going to rely on for the suspension is actually having the wishbone bending, because it's got a spring, but when you actually fit these, you glue them into the floor. So I need to go on and drill the rest of these out, then I'll get them melted over, and then I'll come back and we'll continue with the assembly. Okay, so I've got all those done. They're all sort of melted over and everything, and so now we can look at actually fitting them on. So we have these here. These are the D23s with the armour plate on them, and we're going to put the actual shock absorber here. Oh, the other thing I forgot, it shows you here these little pins have to be removed. So if you're having steering wheels, you have to remove these pins here. Okay, so we'll take one of our shock absorber units, and the steering arm is going to go down through there, he says. Let's grab my tweezers. So that's going to go through there, and then the arm itself is going to go over there. Now, as I said, we're going to have to rely on the shock absorber, the arm flexing, I'm guessing, if you want suspension to work, because there's no way that's going to stay on there. Now what we need to do here is get some heat into our glue looper, and we'll just melt over that pin there. Okay, and then I'm going to a little bit of stringiness on there, I just want to get rid of it. Come on, come off. Alright, so I'm going to go on and put the others on just the same, and go from there. I'm not exactly sure. Oh, I know what I've done here. I've put this together wrong. I've put this together with those arms facing out. They should be like this. See, I've got these arms here facing out. They should be like that. Oops. I'm going to try and get that apart. Right, back in a bit. Alright, so if you remember I said I had this the wrong way around because I had these little clamps on here were facing backwards when they should have been facing forward. So I basically fitted this like that. Okay, so it was correctly assembled, but I fitted it the wrong way around. What it should have done is fitted it like that. So when you build yours, make sure these arms are kicked in, not out. Okay, so I had them kicked out. They need to be kicked in. Now to get them out, if you're wondering, all I did was went in with a pair of tweezers and just grabbed the top and just squashed the bit that's moulded over to mushroom, just squash it so that it goes through, and then you should have enough material to redo it when it goes back together. We shall see in a minute. Hang on. Let's get this in here with our tweezers. Let's get that away from that arm. So you should be able to now place that in that hole and push it down in. I'll do this off camera, guys, because it's probably going to take a little while. I'm just going to want to make sure that, the thing is, if I have got a little edge there, that when I pulled it out it would have sort of flipped it up, but now I'm trying to push it back in, it will be almost like a barb stopping it going in. Do the same on this one. Oops, I just cut my finger then. See the cut of my finger in it? It's no blood, no, don't worry about that. Yeah, it just shows you need to keep your wits about you. This is the problem. If you're a YouTuber, you'll know what I mean when you're doing modelling on videos. you know, when you're modelling on your own and you've got the music playing and everything's all good, all you're really concentrating on is your model. But when you're looking at the lights and looking at the camera and thinking about what you're saying, and you know, have I got it on camera, is it in focus, blah 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 blah, all those millions of questions. This is how mistakes are made. Come on, go in. Oh, just go in the bloody hole, you swine. Oh, it's not going to go in, is it? It is not going to go in. Oh dear. Okay, back in a bit. Okay, we're back. Right, so that's all gone back together. That's all steering lovely, as you can see. I just went in and remelted those pins and everything's good. So that's that one in. And then we've got to do the same on the other side, but with one of these without the armour plate. So we're going to put, first of all, we're going to put the steering arm through there. Just like so. And it's all just flopping about because I haven't glued the wishbones down or anything. I'm just going to hold that in there like that without trying to break anything. Just going to hold that like that. And then get some heat into the glow loper and melt that pin. There we are. Some more heat. There we go. And then a quick right, so that's how that's going. So those wishbones are going to glue on there like that. I can't see how we're going to have working suspension. I just can't see it. They're going to break surely, but what we'll do is we'll glue them in. So that's gone in there. That one's gone there, right, so I'll do the same on these front two and I'll come back and we'll finish off step 4. Right, there we go, all 4 of them done. Of course now we've got to be careful putting it down this way because we'll push the wishbones off until the glue's dried. So this assembly here, you can see this A71, 72 and 77. That's on here. Now I've glued them together, but I haven't glued them on. I did put them on the chassis for so the glue could dry. But we can see here it's quite an awkward little fit. There's a tiny little pocket in there and a tiny little pocket there. And there's 2 tiny little legs on here, and you can see how this sort of goes together, and it's all on a bit of an angle and a bit weird, but it does go in. Okay, so that's going to go over there. It's just like a diff guard. So that's going to go on like that. Okay, so I would suggest you glue it together and then stick it on the model to dry. Oh, I know what I haven't done. I noticed it earlier. There's some flash across that front edge. It's like a mould seam. There we are. Right. So that's going down in there. Is that right? Yeah, that's it. So we can put a drop of cement in there and a drop in there. There we go, that's that mounted in place. So that's all good. Looks like I've managed to get a slight angle on it. Just pull it square. There we are. It's a bit weird because one side's on an angle, one side's on a flat, and the sides are different lengths, and it's a very, very weird little construction, that. I'm just going to attempt to twist it around. Okay, so that's that. Now the next thing we've got to do is these sides here. So we've got D9, D8, D98, D98, and 99. So all the 9s and 8s. So we have looking at it like this, I would imagine in the upgrade set these will be made of photo etch because they're grills. Blow out the plastic debris from there. I get a stiffish brush. Just get out the plastic debris from sanding. There we go. Right, so that one's like that. So that means that this is D98. So that's going to glue onto there like that. Yeah. So I'll put a drop of cement there. I'm going to sneeze. Okay, so that's going that way round, and now this is going to drop on. We've got two holes in here. You can see there is a hole there and a hole there, and on the back of here we've got pins. They're going to go into those holes, so that's going to cover our shock absorbers and everything. And then those panels are going to line up with these. You can see them moulded in, because you've got this moulded in line here. So that's going to sit in there, and then that piece we glued onto the bottom. I'm just going to push that down so that it aligns nicely with the floor. And then we've got this one here is going to go into there. It's a bit weird. There's a hole there. It looks like it's for a pin on this flange here, but on that flange there was a big ejector pin mark. So they're a lovely fit. They just snap into place. You can hear them sort of sliding in. So I'm going to put a drop of cement there and a drop of cement into there. I'll put a little bit on this back piece here. That's that done. And then I'll put a little bit on the base. There we go, that's those in. So you can see we've got our working suspension now. So those shock absorbers that I said weren't to scale, the other ones were nicer. Doesn't really matter because you can't see them anyway, but if you get the upgrade set, I'm sure they'll be photo etch. So there we go. So I'm going to put them on the other side, and then that will be step 4 complete. Alright, there we go. So that's those guards on there, the covers for the suspension unit, so that's all good. Right, so now we're on to step 5. I've got the parts off here. You can see down in the bottom here we've got 8 wheel assemblies, and there's a little air cylinder that's going on the back of the brake back plate, so that's good. So then we've got the actual drum itself, so we're going to put a poly cap in there. Got some sanding debris there. Put these together just like so. Hold them together, and then whoop, around there. I expect you can hear I've got a stinking cold. It seems to come and go. It's really weird. I've had it for over a week now. No, it must be 2 weeks. No, it must be 3 weeks I've had it. It just seems to come and go. Really weird. So around like that. Around like that. There we go. So that's those glued together. Okay, so I've made the others up there, so we've got 8 there done. We've got these 2 little stowage boxes here, and they're going to line up on those little sticky out bits there, so that's going to go back like that and sort of up against that side panel there. Now what's happening is this leg on here, which is part of that, is sticking out further than that one. So what I'm going to do is just carve away some of this, just like so. That should allow it to sit square then. There we go, that's better. All sits nice and square now. So that goes in there, so we can put a drop of cement in there and a drop of cement in there. And there we go. So that's that one in. Now do we have the same problem on this side? No, we don't, by the look of it. Yes, we do. It's just out. So we'll shave a bit off of there, shave a bit off of there. There we are. You can see it's gone the other way now. Okay, so that could go in there like that. Drop in there. There we are. Right. We just put a drop in the back of this one as well. In there and in there. That'll make sure they never come away. Okay, so that's those in. Then we've got this armour plate here, which is going to go over like that. Be careful when you take this off. That little bit there is not a sprue gate. That is actually part of the part. One of my favourite tricks that I end up cutting bits off when they shouldn't be. Right, some sanding debris still on there. I thought I could see a bit of a mould seam along that edge as well. I thought I could see a sprue gate, but I couldn't. But I didn't. Well, I thought I did, but I didn't. If you know what I mean. I know what I mean in my little way. Right, so that's going to go onto there like that. Okay. I must say the fit on this thing is perfect. It's absolutely awesome. So put a drop in there. We'll put a drop in there and in there and a drop in there. Hold it in position. And that's going to go down onto there like so. Drop in the back there and a drop in behind there. So there we are, that's that additional armour plate under there. So now we can see that, yeah, our suspension will work because the wishbones will bend slightly. Okay, so there we go. Right. So that's that all gone together. Remember, don't worry about the gaps because it's all bolted on panels, guy, or riveted on or whatever. And then finally we've got this piece, well not finally, we've got this piece here, which is like another piece of armour plate. It's going that way around, so the ejector pin marks are on the inside, which is good. And then we've got 4 little pins on there and we've got 4 little holes in there, so that's going to line up with those pins straight away. And then what we'll do is get a little drop of extra thin in there and a little drop, put some in that slot. There we go. And then don't touch it, just leave it, you don't want the glue oozing out. You just want it to look bolted on. So they're making a lot of fuss about this area here. It's probably where the driver sits or something. So there we go. Right. And then finally we have the wheels to go on. So these have D-shaped holes in the back of them, and then on there you can see we've got D-shaped mountings. So they are literally going to go on like that. That's that. And then like that. And then Quite awkward to hold, that one. It does fit, it just feels a bit weird, it feels a bit floppy. Get a drop of cement in there. What I'll do is I'll glue the other side on as well. So what I'll do is I'll put some cement on here. And then I should be able to just give all that a bit of a squeeze. There we go. Okay, so we'll do the same on this one. We'll put some cement on here. And then drop that one on. Same here. Oops. Drop that one on. And then give them a little squeeze. And then we're going to put another drop in because it's the quick setting, remember, and the chances are that when I put the cement on first, it's probably dried out practically before the drum gets on there. So that's those on. And then with these rear ones, which fit much easier, so that's going to plonk onto there, drop a glue in there, and then that one's going to plonk on there. And a drop of glue on, that's too much. Drop cement in there, there we go. Right, so we could just do a bit of an eye up job, have a look along the length of the wheels and check that all's looking good. But we want to make sure, as we can't check the camber on the fronts, but we can on the rears. And what we want is to make sure that those rear wheels are all dead ahead and vertical or cambered the same. We don't sort of want one, we want it all nice and straight. So I'm going to grab a couple of blocks, 1, 2, 3 blocks. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. I'm just wondering if I can perhaps that way around. Maybe we can sit the. It's not going to stay there, is it? Right. So if we do that like that, 1, 2, 3 blocks like that, and then put some pressure on, then they should dry vertical and facing forward. There we go. So leave that to dry, and then we'll come back and see how it looks. Alright, moving along, we've got these parts here. These are parts of the suspension. If you're not using the suspension, use these parts here. But if you are using the suspension, use 62, a spring, and 67. So what we've got to do is grab the bag of springs wherever they've gone. There they are. I should have done that with the camera off, I'm sorry. Get those springs out. And then that is going to basically go over the top of that, like so. And then one of these is going to go over the top, like that way up, sorry. And then that's going to glue over that shock absorber. It's going to glue into there. Okay, it's a nice snug fit, so it stays in there on its own. Also on here, you can see this is flat, but on these they have this Z pin, Z pin, whatever you want to call it. So we just take those off and just sand it flat, just like so. Alright, so basically that's how it's going, like that. It seems a bit strange that we've got this like this. So that's going over there. That's going over. And that is a nice snug fit in there. It fits nice and snugly. So you have suspension movement, but then you're going to glue this. Okay, you're gluing the cap to the shock absorber, not the unit. So it's a downward stop, it's not an upward stop. So you want to hold that up when you glue that on so you don't get cement on there. So what we're going to do here, and we've got 2 minutes left on the camera, we're going to put some cement around there, put some around there. Make sure they're not going to come out. We don't want them coming out once the top of the hull's on, do we? Right. And then we can fit the other sprue gate on there. Fit the other two. Whoops. Throw the spring across the room. So put the spring on there like that. Put the cup over the top. That's not such a good fit on that side, look. It was probably that sprue gate that was making it stay in. So I'm going to have to hold that down, put cement in there and let it dry, and keep a hold of it while it's drying. That's why we've got quick setting. And then finally this spring on here. I wonder what that 9th spring is for. Yeah, that one's not a tight fit either, so that one's going to have to be held down and glued. Just like so. Okay, so they're in there, and then what we're going to do just finally, so we'll call it a day for part one. We're going to hold the shock absorber. What I'm going to do is take the cap, hold this shock absorber up like that, the suspension unit up like that. I'm going to put a drop of glue into that cap, get off, wants to stick on the brush, and then put that cap on there and make sure that the shock absorber top stays away from that cup until the glue dries. Okay, so I'm just going to hold that like that. And that's your downward stop. So there's your working suspension. It's just relying on flexing the wishbone. So there we are. That's it. I will see you all.